Hi, I'm Bo Walker.
And I'm Bob Mathis.
And this is our presentation for our Literature of the South class with Dr. Margaret Eskew about race mixing in Southern literature since the 60s.
Thank you for joining us for Tabooed Romance, What Color is Love? All right, we want to begin by talking about Mildred and Richard Loving. On July 11, 1958, Richard and Mildred were home asleep in their beds when the police burst into the room and hauled them off to jail, where Mildred remained for several days, all for the crime of getting married.
At that time, 24 states across the nation had laws strictly prohibiting the marriage between people of different races. 5 weeks earlier, the longtime couple learned that Mildred was pregnant and decided to wed in defiance of the law. In order to evade Virginia's Racial Integrity Act, the pair had traveled to Washington, D.C. for the ceremony. Upon their return to Virginia, they were arrested and found guilty, with the judge informing Mildred, "As long as you live, you will be known as a felon." The Lovings moved to the relative safety of Washington, but longed to return to their home. In 1963, they approached the American Civil Liberties Union to fight their case in court. After an extensive legal battle, the Supreme Court ruled that laws prohibiting interracial marriage were unconstitutional. Although such laws officially remained on the books in several states, the Lovings' landmark victory rendered them effectively unenforceable, ensuring nobody else would have to endure the same treatment. However, the last law officially prohibiting interracial marriage was not repealed until 2000, the year 2000, in Alabama. Suzanne Jones, the author of Race Mixing in Southern Fiction since the 60s, examines a novel by Ernest Gaines written in 1948, Of Love and Dust. It is a novel about interracial love that questioned prevailing opinions. Sidney Bonbon, a Cajun overseer, is involved in a long-term affair with Pauline, the plantation owner's black cook. In the course of the novel, Bonbon's wife, Louise, avenges this betrayal by having an affair with Marcus, a black man from Baton Rouge who has been bonded to work on the plantation while awaiting trial for murder. Gaines uses their relationship to demonstrate that for the white man, transgression of the Southern interracial taboo is not sex with a black woman, but rather love. Gaines suggests that it does not take perfect heroes to effect social change or extraordinary events to occasion individual transformation. A key ingredient for Gaines is moving his characters out of the box in which Southern race relations have confined them. And so, Of Love and Dust counters, in a very subtle way, the simplistic notions of the taboos about interracial love, and discloses truths about interracial love that late 20th century white Southerners had repressed.
A couple of years ago, an English teacher, Jane Donahue, which is my mother-in-law, wrote me an email and requested that our prayer chaplains at Unity please pray for her students in Thailand. "I'm speaking to a dead classroom," she said, "and I don't know what to do to get them excited about learning. Since I started at Mercer, Jane likes to keep up with my education and the things I'm doing in my classes. For class, I had written several stories about working on a farm in North Georgia, where my mother would send us during the summer months while school was out. In addition to learning real-life skills, I got room and board and earned enough money to buy school clothes for the next year. I sent Jane one of these stories to help her connect with what I was doing." Quite unexpectedly, Jane asked if she could share one of the stories with the students. And then she wrote back with this email. "You're not going to believe this," they reported. "They wanted copies of your story to take home with them and read again. Jane also developed classroom exercises using vocabulary words in the story. When she tested the students, they all got good grades. Unbelievable, Jane explained. It's a miracle. I believe God is working through you 10,000 miles away for my class. The students have totally changed and can't wait to answer questions. Please write more stories. Within days, I started receiving letters in English from the children in Thailand, wanting to know more about Uncle Joe and Aunt Biddy and the boys on the farm. The children related how they had laughed, and also a few things had made them sad. But most of all, they couldn't believe how that American kids grew up the same way that they did, and feeling the same feelings. I call this next story Toby, which has now been changed to The Secret. It's a true story about a little black boy who came to live on the farm. Here are some parts from The Secret that you'll enjoy.
I grabbed the stick and held the barbed wire up while Alan passed through. Then he held it for me while I crawled under. As we walked up the hill toward the house, we could see Uncle Joe with a little black boy. He had on an old plaid shirt and jeans with the knees worn out. His shoes didn't match. One was brown leather and the other looked like an old house shoe. He didn't have any socks on either. Under his arm was what looked like an old stuffed teddy bear. It was dirty and both eyes were missing. One arm was gone and someone had stitched it up so the stuffing wouldn't fall out. The little boy held it tight under his arm and his thumb was stuck in his mouth. "Boy, get that thumb out your mouth. I done told you." Uncle Joe growled at the boy. The boy pulled the thumb out of his mouth, revealing a missing tooth right in front.
This story took place in the 1960s, where there were strict color barriers. For an example, I went to an all-white school. Whites and blacks were always separated. Whites could not befriend blacks without negative consequences. Here's another excerpt from the story.
"Toby, this is your cot. Get in and stay there till morning," Billy ordered. "If you have to go to the bathroom, go now. Uncle Joe doesn't like us to go downstairs after night." Little Toby crawled up on the cot next to mine and huddled up in a tight little ball with his knees at his chin and his arms wrapped around his legs. Big alligator tears ran down his cheeks as he clutched his dirty old teddy bear. I could hear Toby snubbing as I tried to go to sleep. I felt sorry for him, not having a family and all. I wondered what it must feel like to lose your mother, to be in a strange place with all white people telling you what to do. I got up, went over to his cot, and sat down beside him. "Come on, I want to show you something," I said softly. "Come on, I won't hurt you. It's over here." Toby reached for my hand as he released his grip on his legs and started to get out of bed. His grip told me I had his trust.
Strangely, when I reached out and touched Toby's hand, I couldn't tell what color he was. I felt God's love. I felt a relationship like no other relationship I would ever know. Toby became my brother. In that instant, I realized what my father and grandfather told me was not the truth. Toby and I worked together, played together, and we prayed together. We shared our dreams, slept in the same room, and ate at the same table. We became brothers. Whenever you saw me, you saw Toby, or vice versa. There were no boundaries between us. The story describes how some people did not appreciate the situation. The father of two of the boys came and removed their sons from the farm because of Toby. The story reveals the secret of a love between Toby's mother and Uncle Joe when they were younger. A love that could never be realized. It's a story of color of skin. Uncle Joe had to leave Iowa because of it.
"I's got a secret," Toby proclaimed. "Yeah? What kind of secret?" I asked. "It's about Uncle Joe and my mama," he said. "One night, Mama drank too much apple cider, or I think it was apple cider. She said that Uncle Joe and her played together when they were kids. He'd be's a husband and she'd be's a wife. And she'd make mud pies and Uncle Joe ate some of one." "That's funny, but that ain't no big deal," I said. "That ain't it," he said. "Well, they growed up a little and was teenagers, and one day they was out behind the old woodshed and they kissed." "No way," I yelled. "She told me they did," he said. And guess what? Uncle Joe's daddy sees them. He beats the fire out of Uncle Joe with a bullwhip across his back. I'll just bet he's got the scars to this day. They lock up my mama in the tool shed for 3 days with no food and no water. They told him that blacks and whites was not supposed to be together. No way, no how. Well, guess what? That didn't stop him. Uncle Joe would sneak out late at night and tap on Mama's window so they could be together. Mama said that she could never love another man. That's why I ain't got no daddy. Mama says that I was a wonderful blessing from something bad, and if anything ever happened to her for me to find Uncle Joe, that he was a good man and he would do right by me. Then Mama started sneaking out the house at night and going down to the juke joint. She thought I was asleep, but I could hear the door shut. One night, they found her dead out back behind that old juke joint. She never come back home. I waited for her for 3 days and nights, and then one day the preacher showed up and told me what happened. He say that she didn't look like herself no more. He say I couldn't see her. He told me that my mama confessed to him about Uncle Joe and that he found him in Cannon Ridge, Georgia, where the South made them cannons for the Civil War. The church got up some money and bought me a ticket to hear, and that's my big secret. You can't tell nobody. "Don't worry, I ain't telling," I said.
On my desk at home is a letter from a little girl from Thailand who asked, "Why does the color of your skin make a difference? Toby could not help that his skin was brown." I have answered many, many letters from the children in Thailand, but this one is still on my desk. What do I tell her? Do I tell her that in America we made slaves out of the dark people from Africa, and that later we had a war, and thousands upon thousands of young men died over color? And then the government declared them free, but they still weren't. They were free, but had to remain separate from the white people. And the white people had all of the control. Do I tell her that on December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks, a 42-year-old African-American woman who worked as a seamstress, boarded a Montgomery City bus to go home from work, and sitting where black people were supposed to sit, was asked by the bus driver to give her seat to a man, to a white man. That she refused and she was arrested? Do I tell her that it started a boycott? African Americans made up 75% of the bus riders in the Montgomery area. The boycott was organized by a Baptist minister, Martin Luther King Jr., and lasted for 381 days. And in 1956, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that segregation laws were unconstitutional. Montgomery buses were integrated? Do I tell her that this started a civil rights movement that later would cost the lives of hundreds, including Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? What do I tell this little girl from Thailand who asked, "Why does the color of your skin make a difference? What color is hate?"
Later in the Cannon Ridge story, Toby asked Bobby, "What color is God?" Bobby told him, "I don't know. I used to think God was white like me, but maybe God is brown like you. Or maybe He has no color at all. Like the wind. You can feel the wind, but you can't see it." And can you tell me the color of God above? Do you know what is the color of love? I know it isn't black or white or any shade of gray. What is the color of a sunny summer day? And I'm not sure that there's a color of love at all. Trying to define it as such is like building up a great big wall. It keeps people out that we could be letting in. It's living in an incomplete world. You're seeing life through a tinted lens. And so perhaps it's not that simple to explain. More akin to the smell of a sudden summer rain. No priest or poet has any kind of monopoly on the love that can exist between you and me. And I'm not sure that there's a color of love at all. Putting love inside a box is gonna make this big world small. It keeps people out that we could be letting in. When we love like we're colorblind, everyone can win.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. taught us, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. So what color is love? If you ask me, it has no color, no boundaries, and it's free. Like the wind. You can't see the wind, but you sure can feel it.